Stay with me. I can watch it. They're not going to die. It ain't going to happen. And nobody you know's died yet. Get over it. It won't happen. Now breathe. Because when you breathe, remember. People think about, I saw years ago they said that God was dead. Remember that on Time magazine? Well, if you want to know where God is, do this. Lick your hand, and wherever you move it and it's cool, wherever you move it and it's cool, that's where God is. Think about it. What is unseen? How long can you live without God? How long can you hold your breath? There's your answer. What does air represent? The divine. You can't see it, but you can't do without it. And then it becomes, how deep do you breathe? Okay? Always remember, everybody, when you come here, you have free will. All of us on the other side thinks that free will is some kind of big deal. God, I get to make a decision. Well, I definitely want to go to that place. What do I get to make a decision about? Whether I'm alive or not, or whether I'm going to die or not. Well, if you're breathing, you're alive. Stay with me. See, it's hard to get past the fact that you're not going to die. Because the last 2 years, the last 2 or 3 years, we've all been faced with being scared to death of death. And systems are put in place to make us that way. Well, let me answer that question for you guys. When you choose to come here, you're also chosen to come here. You're chosen to come because there's nobody but you capable of achieving the divine goal that was uniquely decided upon when you took your first breath. People always ask me, Dannion, you say this thing about first breath. When do you think conception is? Well, I think conception is the first breath. Because you don't know who's getting a chance to come to just before that first breath. And I can promise you, there's 1 billion of you trying to get in that body. Because here, you get a chance to practice being a God. What's the meaning of life? That eternal search. Practice being a God. How do you know that? Make a list of everything you think God is. Loving, caring, compassionate, protective. Make your list. And then, how often per day do you get a chance to be everything you put on that list? All day, every day. You get a chance to be what is on that list. So now you know the meaning of life. To practice being a God, caring, compassionate. And then comes the trick. When you come here, this is the power of the illusion. When you come here, you must accept a lie. You must accept a lie. The lie is this: that in the spiritual world where you came from, there is no such thing as helplessness, and there's no such thing as loneliness. But when you come here, in order to practice being a God, you have to believe that you can be helpless and alone and still do the work. Think about it. Helpless and alone. Everybody in the spiritual realm, both good and evil, knows the lie. Helplessness and loneliness. When you're birthed and when you transition, you are helpless. And in life, you are alone because we're designed to build relationships. If you look at the last couple of years, that means the forces of evil knows the same thing. And they drive us to helplessness, and they drive us to loneliness, and they create a driving fear of death so that you are separated from the people you love, and the people who love you are separated from you. Now, that's the trick that they pulled on you. Well, people say, well, Dannion, I don't really know. Well, everybody, whoever read Saved by the Light, this book was written 30 years ago, was published like 29 years ago. And everybody knows box 12 on chapter 5, but let me kind of refresh your memory so you can really have some fun. Take a breath. I need you to breathe. I know it's a bitch, and I know it's tough, and I know it's really hard, but breathing is important. So, coming back. Well, I thought I had it in this book. I got it. Thank you. You know all the help I could get. So, think of this. Chapter 5, box 12. The title is Technology and the Virus. Before the turn of the century, a man would become among the richest in the world, so rich that he'd have a stranglehold on the world economy. Software. Still, the world will welcome him, and since that the computer chips, software, had been designed to somehow put the world on even keel, software. Gradually, he succumbed to his own power, and he began to think of himself as a deity. To insist on greater control, with extra control, he began to rule the world. Does anybody know anybody that's like that now? Software. His method of rule would be unique. Everyone in the world has mandated by law to have a chip inserted underneath his or her skin. The patent is 060606. That's the patent. Who owns that patent? Bill Gates. This chip contained all the individual personal information. The chip contained all of the individual's personal information. If a government agency wanted to know something, all it had to do was scan the chip with a special device. By doing so, it could discover everything about you, even where you work, live, medical records, even what kind of illness you might get in the future. That's your cell phone. I have said that this is 45 years. The battle for the souls of humankind will be fought in healthcare. That's where it is, and that's where we live today. So the fact that you're in this room, you are a light bearer. Your job is to hold the light and practice being a God, to be the divine difference in the lives of people, instead of hate and anger and fear and all that. We don't have that as spiritual beings, everybody. It's not a part of us. We come here and believe that we're separate from the divine. Do you know how insane it is to think you're not godlike? It is insanity. Do you think that you could possibly, if God is everywhere and the energetic patterns everywhere and quantum dynamics across many spectrums and borders and limits, and you think you're not a part of that? And you think that because you think you have a physical body that you're separated from it? Well, try this. How many people think I just hit this podium? Don't raise your hand. Let me say it again. How many people think I just hit this podium? Well, I didn't. If you had an electron microscope right here, you would see that I never touched this podium. That's electron disbursement. You can measure it. You never touch anything physically your entire life. You never touch anything. Find somebody that can prove to me that you've ever touched it. It's not possible. It's electron disbursement. So when you start to go to thinking that you're really physical and you're really separate, that's nonsense. But you took the lie on so that you could inspire other people to hold, to do not yield, to not be afraid of something that is inevitable. I'm writing a new book called Certainty, because if something is guaranteed and inevitable, how much do you know about it? And when do you start thinking about death? When it gets in your face or it's happening to somebody you love. Well, that's a little late. Because transition is about celebration and praising and celebrating. I've been a hospice volunteer for 43 years. I have more than 34,000 hours at the bedside. I've been with 2,012 people going from this world to the next, and 351 taking their last breath. What do I not know? Tell me. And I've been dead so many times you just laugh. Oh, God, he's been dead again. Oh, God, you're back? Hey, I'm going to be where the party is. Now listen to this one. There's an even more sinister side to this chip. A person's lifetime can be limited by programming this chip to dissolve and kill them or transition them by a virtual substance it's made of. Everybody ever heard of the shot? Lifetimes could be controlled to avoid the cost of growing old placed on the government. How many old people are there in America? There's 72.8 million of us. 72.8 million. That's how many of us there are. Do we get sick? Have we taken care of ourselves? Are we a burden on the system, what Kissinger called worthless eaters? Yeah. And what's going to happen if you're going to build a technology age, the fourth age, and you don't need human beings to do the work that robots can do? What are you going to inspire people to do? If a robot can take your job. I mean, they got robots at McDonald's. And then when they did the study on McDonald's, I hope somebody gets mad at me about this, but McDonald's was compared to not as good as, a McDonald's burger was compared to be not as good as dog food. And they make it out of the same stuff. So if you've been growing up on McDonald's, you need to change your taste buds. People who refuse to have this chip implant in their bodies roam as outcasts. They could not be employed or denied government services. I said that 28 years ago. 28 years ago. Is it happening? Yes. So that means that there is a possibility of the probable possibilities that's going to happen here that the divine already knows. And I write it in this book because when I went and saw Raymond Moody, and he denies this, but still the truth. Most of you people know I don't lie. I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, you know, I can't remember if I lied, so I don't do it. But I saw Raymond broken. The system had broken him. Because the philosophers, the psychiatrists, the doctors all turned on him. Because he was saying that there was something after death. Life after life. There was something after it. And everybody went crazy. Everybody. And they condemned him. Heretic. Well, this is how funny that is. This is a joke, you know, but people say, do you know the difference between God and a doctor? God never thinks she's a doctor. So she's hanging out at the Cloud Bar doing some angel shots. She's got Gabriel there and blowing his horn. She's got Michael there. They're all, hoorah, get some, soldier. And she's got Michael there. And she says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to send a bunch of them turkeys back. Because the advancements in cardiopulmonary resuscitation techniques, more of us are still alive. The fact that we are still coming back from the dead, whose fault is it? The advancements of modern medicine. So instead of having a preacher trying to save us, Lord God, come and save these savage heathens. Okay? I grew up in the South, man. You know, you hear that stuff all the time. Great Lord, that boy needs some preparation H or something. Have you ever watched when those preachers, God, please, Jesus Christ. You know you're going to need about a half a gallon of preparation H after you. What? What are they going to do, kill me? Ah, that ain't nothing. So, now we're in a dilemma because we come back and we have a common field of energy about us and we change. And it can't be explained. Oxygen brain deprivation, temporal lobe seizures, anaphylactic shock. Okay, now they're doing a study of people who had died, and at the point of death, they're recording what their brain activity is, and from the conclusions of the brain activity, they're concluding they're having a life review. They're concluding this because of the activity of the brain shutting down. Well, hell, I've been talking about it for 40 years. That didn't impress me. I mean, the most important thing about living now is being the difference that the divine makes And that is not overly concerned, but empathically connected. Feel what they're going through. And please, the most important thing is paying attention to your breath. It becomes so important when you understand the power of breathing is. Have you ever thought about it? How about it, Mark? Okay, so think of this. Your pineal gland is supposed to be your third eye. Well, if you think about all your sinus cavities, think about this. You have 8 sinus cavities. And if you connect those sinus cavities, and here's the odd thing about this. You have sinus cavities right here, but when you breathe in, where does the air go first? It goes down. You're filling up the bottom ones before you fill up the top ones. Now, nobody can explain how that operates, but damn if it doesn't do it. Because the first breath of the divine is to ground you. Hey, you're here. You're doing the divine work, and don't forget it. Then you fill up the rest of them. But here's the most important thing about breath, everybody. When you breathe in, that's your free will that allows you to take that breath. And how deep you breathe that breath in determines how appreciative you are of the life you have. And we take shallow breaths. And if you scare us, we take even shallower breaths. Or if you threaten us, we take even less breaths. Just like what we watched for the last 2 years. Well, I can thank the devil for 2 things. Number 1, that my mom and dad have already left this world. Because if those people could tell me, as my parents were transitioning, which I was with both of my parents, and they could tell me that I couldn't be with my parents, as I lit the building on fire, and they were rolling them out to take them to the next nursing home, I'm going to be right there talking to mom or dad on the way. So what is so thankful about is how many nursing homes and hospitals I didn't have to burn down. Sorry. You're not going to scare me to death about my mom and my dad. You're not. When you breathe out, what you intend, your intent is power. Because remember, everybody, before you breathe out, when you breathed in, before you breathed out, you stopped. And that air was held in your cavities. You breathe in, you stop, and you breathe out. Everything divinely happens there. How you connect physically, mentally, ethereally, and spiritually to the divine is that space between each breath. Most people don't think about a sentence. A sentence is a collection of words that's stopping and starting with an intent that structures the verb. A sentence is a bunch of words that stop and start based on an intention that's structured around the verb. The intention is the action when you think about it. Why? I hate to say this, kids, but I've been a lot of times without breathing. I know where you go when you stop breathing. It's not near as much fun as pretending like you're a human. Pretending. And it's even more fun to think this, that you're not connected to the divine. Nobody ever leaves heaven. You cannot separate yourself from divinity. You cannot separate yourself from your spiritual self. It's not possible. So we have religions, we have institutions, and we have governments that's completely convinced us that we're alone, we're helpless, and we need them. Institutions, religions, and governments. We need them, and we just watched 2 years of that. Every which way, and they're going to try it again. Why? Why now? Well, if you're a Maya fan, and I've been on a tour, this is Mark Becker. He has the show in New York. It has been going on since he was a kid. And we went on a tour. We did a boat tour because I'm a big Maya fan. I just left Guatemala and the Yucatan last week to make sure I know what I'm talking about. Only people, December the 21st, 2012, only people thought the end of time was coming was white people. Bunch of white people saw the movie 2012 and they thought it was the end of time. Well, the Maya only believed one period ended and another period began. And what's funny about the Mayan calendar is this. It counts backwards. Our calendars go into the future. The Mayans' calendar goes backwards. They count down a 25,920-year period. 25,920 years. That's how they said it took for the precession of the equinox. When did we discover that? When did we white people discover 25,920? Sometime in the late 30s. They counted 365 days a year in their sun calendar, 260 in their days a year, and 13 months in their lunar calendar. Think about it. When did we discover Neptune? 1844. When did the Maya discover Neptune? 2431 BCE. When did we discover that Mars wasn't red? It got to be called that it was red because it was the god of war, Mars, so it had to be red. Okay, well, we didn't discover till the 60s that it wasn't red. When did the Mayas discover it wasn't red? 2421 BCE. Think about it. They knew how many days. They knew the cycles that we operate by. So when you stop to look at where we are, we're in the 9th year of a new age. So evil must scare you to death, frighten you, to separate you from who you love and who loves you. Because then you become helpless and then you become lonely. Isn't that what we just experienced? Well, they're going to come again. Why? We didn't break. We held. We are the champions. We're the champions. We make the difference between day and night and the value of life. We stay together, we stay close. And we come together to see old friends and to know you're around people just as crazy as you. Nobody's going to die. Never. It will never happen. What happens then? Forever just got a whole lot longer. And you're going to be you forever. Think about it. So it's time to regroup, reorganize, and refocus. We are in a new age. The age of electronics, the age of transhumanism. If you were going to replace a person's job with a robot, and I don't know if any of you know about the GRACE project. The GRACE project is DARPA and a couple of scientists at CERN, and they have created an android that you cannot tell the difference between you and the android. So when you start to structure transhumanism, this big story we're all hearing, if you're going to be replaced by somebody, they want you comfortable with them. They make your phone, a machine, your best friend. They create games, and all of a sudden they trap you in a world to explore your world and all those games and stuff that's on that, so that that's what you do. Okay? It's only preparing you to accept the fact that they're going to eliminate your jobs, and then what are you going to do to rise above it? That's where we are. So what do we do about it? We reassess who we are. We reassess, and we get on the right focus. You are a spiritual being. You chose to be here, you were chosen to be here. And somehow it was us that came to hold a light. It was us. It wasn't anybody else. There is nobody more uniquely qualified to be born where you were born, to be born around who you were, and to be in the relationships that you are with the people that you love or who supposedly love you. You must redefine each of those relationships and get clarity and value about each of those relationships, or you will get trapped in the maze. They have to convince you that you're going to die of something. And that's everything. You're either going to die of taking the vaccination, you're going to die of not taking it, you're going to die of this, you're going to die of that, you're going to die of this, you can't see your fridge, you can't see your mama pass away, you can't do any of that. Well, all that is insane. Nobody dies. Nobody's ever left heaven. It's impossible for me to think that. As hard as I wish it was true, ain't going to happen. So what tools? Now, Sunday, I hope all of you can come Sunday because I'm going to blow it all out. But I wanted to be here in the opening of this program. I told Kenny, I said, Kenny, I want to be here on Friday night. I want to open this program and have my heart open, and I want to open my heart to each of you. And thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for so much for being a part of the love, power, presence, and greatness that we hold. We have beat them one more time, so they got to come at us again. They're going to come at us again, and they come at us as hard as they can. Okay, they're even willing to start a world war to cover for what the illusion they have been painting us with for all these years. Nuclear, we're being threatened with nuclear world war. The vaccine didn't do it. So let's start a world war. That won't work either. Won't work. This is not 1932. This is 2022. What we're watching happening now is an evil illusion. And then who caused it? Everybody thinks Russia caused this. There is no way a sane person can think that they caused it. Maybe that Putin played his hand a little too soon. He should have waited. And he should have done just that. So, my issue is this. This is Secrets of the Light, you know, my 2 books. This is like 2002. But I happen to stay like 20 years ahead of the game because every time I go over there, they show me all kind of new stuff. So for all you who wish you had a near-death experience, let me tell you something. Take my word for it. You don't need it. You don't need it because what it does is it makes you real and it makes you honest with yourself. So what I'm going to try to do is try to help you become honest with yourself. So let's say we had to start over. I'm not going to die. Sad, I'm sorry, I wish all of you would die, but it's not going to happen. I'd give anything if one of you would die. But it ain't going to happen. So what am I left with? Entertainment. What, if I'm not going to die and I didn't go to hell, everything has to be entertaining. You know, and people take spirituality so serious that if you want to talk to me about God, you're not making me laugh, I don't want to hear it. Because where did the sense of humor come? Us making fun of ourselves is where a sense of humor comes. But don't you think God is interested and the divine force is interested in that? Absolutely. So, let's say that I have a program called the Fourfold Path to Power. Fourfold Path to Power. This is all in Secrets of the Light. And you must stop and set these values. What is the power of your love? And what purpose does it serve? Think about this. What is the power of your love and what purpose does it serve? Because once you put that down and you start to think about it, then you begin to move close to the divine nature of who you are. And until you confront the power of your love, it will control and manipulate you by other people. Because what we do is we expend our time hoping other people give back to us the love we gave them. And when it's not given us back, they have controlled who we are, what we are. Instead of us defining the value of our love, it's being defined for us and by us by religions, institutions, and government. So what's the power of your love and what's the value of that love? Number one. Number two, what is the power of your beliefs? What's its power? Of your belief system. So you have to review your belief system. What do you believe in? I believe you're not going to die. And I believe everybody's funny. And I know we fell for it to come here so we could pretend we were gods. You know, we hang around in heaven, ain't got nothing to do, so we decide we're going to go see if we can be a god. And we come here, you know. And people say, well, wow, woe is me, I'm having so many problems. Well, guess whose fault that is? Yours. Everything you got yourself into, you did it. But here's the relief factor. This is why. Spiritual beings, great, powerful, and mighty spiritual beings with dignity, direction, and purpose. You are a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. A great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. The only thing that can ever go wrong is you allow something to affect your dignity, which skews your direction and your purpose. So when you look at the power of your love and the power of your beliefs, and they're stable, you're not moved by emotional events. You're only empowered by them. Then what is the power of your choices? What is the value and the power of your choices? Think about that. And more importantly, what is the power of your prayers? People say, well, prayers, I don't know if prayers works. Well, Kimberly knows they work. Hey, Kimberly. So when I always talk about stuff, I always define it. I'm notorious for looking up the definition. So when you talk about the power of your prayer, let me give you the definition of it. I worked really hard at the National Institute for Health Office of Complementary and Alternative Medical Policy to put a definition of prayer into medical science. I'm one of the drivers who made this happen. Your prayer, willful, the ability to influence through mental power, conscious, a knowledgeable stream of awareness, intent, a concentrated attention to a specific purpose. So when do you pray? Every single breath. Every single breath you pull in and every single breath you let out is a prayer. Willful, the ability to influence through mental power. Consciousness, a knowledgeable stream of awareness. Intent, concentrated attention to a specific purpose. Isn't that the whole purpose of what breath does? Come on, take a breath. Now feel where we are. Flow. Our power. Our choices. Our love. Our prayer. When you reassess each of those in your life and you make firm identity of those, firm identity, then you have empowered yourself once again to see clearly what is happening. Or you can read Saved by the Light or At Peace in the Light or The Secrets of the Light. I've been on their asses for years. What are they going to do? Nothing. They're going to think they're going to scare me to death? That's funny. But let me tell you something really cool. I had an aneurysm 3 years ago under my aortic valve. So I had to go in for open heart surgery. No one would do the surgery. So I called my cardiologist in Brazil, and he called and found someone to do the surgery because they looked at my stats and no one thought I would live. And so they only gave me 10 days. See, so this little Vietnamese girl had to stand up on a box with these little teeny tiny hands. She said she would do it. She got in there and she said that she could not believe the amount of scar tissue, what I looked like on the inside from being struck by lightning. If I might look pretty good on the outside, that's called a cream and bubble bath. But on the inside, what, you don't like bubble baths? What's the matter with you people? If you don't take your bubble bath once a week, you're done messed up. Put some Epsom salt in there, how's she going to get magnesium in your system? And and if you're not sleeping well, that's insufficient magnesium in your system. The body's just a machine. That's all it is. If your spine wasn't shaped just like this, you couldn't walk because of the pressure of the atmosphere. Okay? And now think of where we are in the world today. Today, we're not physical anymore. And when they invented penicillin in 1928, we became chemical beings. And guess what now? We're energetic beings. We're energetic. And someone said, well, Dannion, how can you say that kind of stuff? I said, well, it's easy. Think of this. I can tell you that you're not even here. Now let me give you some quantum facts. What is the basic physical component of a human being? It's called Planck's spheres, these little round balls of energy that make atoms. Planck's spheres makes atoms. Atoms make molecules. Molecules make cells, and you have 10 trillion of them. And that's what you are. We agree? Yeah. Well, if you take an atom and you put it under an electron microscope, it's 99.999996% empty space. And if you take a molecule and you put it under an electron microscope, it's 99.99998% empty space. And you put a cell under an electron microscope, it's 99.99999% empty space. So you're not even here. Scientifically, you are a big bunch of empty space. And basically, you're just a water treatment plant. What? That's all. You put some minerals in, you pee it out, and you're done with it. You're basically water. And see how you guys laugh? Because it's true. I've been so far away from me. I've watched me so many times. Let me tell you the funny thing about the last one. So I go in and have this surgery. The doctor came out and told Catherine and my brother and my sister that she doesn't think I would survive more than 10 days. But when I came out of surgery, I had no pulse, and I had no pulse, no nothing. And this guy, this little nurse said, he'd worked 12-hour shifts, and he said something told him I had to live. So he got my blood pressure to 56/44. He worked 2 hours on me, 56/44. And he said he heard a voice that told him this person deserves and needs to live. Deserves and needs to live. I don't know if I deserve it, okay, but I needed it. So she said, she told him he may make it 10 days. Well, she missed that. I made it 5. On 2 o'clock, 4 days after the surgery, at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning, I went into cardiac arrest. And here's what was cool about it. I'm laying there, and I hear all them buzzers and bells go off. Everything's just ringing and going. People are running in and out. They're all piling around. And then all of a sudden, I come straight out my body, and I'm standing here. This nurse, the lead nurse, is right here. I'm right there. And there's a group of nurses on this side. And I'm so proud of them. They are pounding on my chest and clearing my airways and putting oxygen mask on me and just pounding away. I said, damn, somebody needs to give these boys an award or something. But, I'm so used to it. So here's what was the funny part, something that was amazing to me. Coming out was really fast. But as I went back in, it was slow, it was easy, and it was like I had to redress myself. I called it cloaks. Do you know you put on 7 other worlds in order to think you're a physical being? You have to cloak yourself in order to think you touch stuff. But you never do. You just have to think that you do. But I realized that, and this is just 2018, and it explains something that I wrote in this book that I didn't completely understand, but I understand it now, of the most important thing. And please, if you get a chance to come on Sunday, where I can have more fun than you can possibly imagine, and have some really great jokes. I'm going to tell you one of my best ones in a minute. But I came back in my body, and I realized in order to be physical, I had to put on these cloaks. Okay, you are connected to 6 other realities that depends on you breathing, practicing being a God. I'm going to say it again. You hear the circle of 7, the logos, the red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, and violet. How many times 7 comes into existence? Okay? Well, I never realized all of that. Each one of these cloaks had a color. Each one of them had one, and I could feel the density of myself thickening. And I was back in my body. They're all freaking out. The poor little old cardiologist, she's like some little intern, you know. She's in there yelling at me, hollering at me, come back, come back. I said, honey, I ain't going anywhere. Hell, I'm still lying in this bed. I mean, you know, you guys getting way too worked up over this, you know. It ain't that big a deal, you know, hell. So when the guy said I deserved to come back, well, okay. So I did pretty good for about 12 minutes. And then all of a sudden, beep, beep, buzz, buzz, there he goes again, blah, 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 blah. And here they come again. They broke a rib, pounding away. But let me tell you something that's the greatest thing. I come back out of my body fast. I'm looking down. I wasn't looking real hot. I was a little sheepish looking. And I was thinking about the pace coming out equal to the pace going in. See, death doesn't even concern me. I'm studying it, you know. And why was it fast coming out, and why did I see being cloaked? And I've already been through 3 of these before, everybody, but I never saw this because it was time for me to know. It was time for me to know. So this guy kept saying, are you ready? Are you ready? And I kept thinking, my God, whatever he wants, let him please have it. Okay? Well, guess what? They don't put pedals on your chest anymore, everybody. They tape them onto you. And the guy over there was working the machine, and he wanted to know when to hit the button because they couldn't revive me. And I said, well, Christ's sake, somebody should let that guy have whatever he wants. Well, about that time, he hit it. And you think you don't feel that shock run through you, but I've felt some shock running through me many times, so I come back in my body really slow. I'm cloaking again. I'm cloaking again. So what did I learn? I'll go back so I could tell it to you. Breathe. This is all a book written 28 years ago about something that happened 45 years ago. There is nothing new to me. I have watched history unfold itself. Let me tell you one more. I think of how silly this is. I called it that they would come into existence called something I call the environmental religion. And I couldn't believe that it could be possible. It's called climate change now. But it was environmental religion. And I wrote this down, but there's nobody even talked about it when I wrote this. And I could not figure out how can the churches, how can all of those things become pagan? The World Council of Churches, all these people have become that way, to become pagans. So the environmental religion is something we have to be very careful of. But listen to this. At the end of this vision, this is 45 years ago, I had the amazing realization that these beings were desperately trying to help us, not because we were such good guys, but because without advancing spiritually here on earth as helpless and alone as human beings, spiritually here on earth practicing being gods, that they could not become successful in their world. There are 6 other levels of consciousness dependent on you to stay exactly who I say you are, a great, powerful, and mighty spiritual being with dignity, direction, and purpose. End of story. You humans are truly heroes. A being told me, those who go to earth are heroes and heroines, and they made it a point to equate male and female equal. I could tell they're making it, quoting as equal. Because you are doing something that no other spiritual being has the courage to do. You have gone to the earth to co-create with and as a God. There are 6 other levels. Hi, Kenny. Let's everybody give Kenny a hand. Okay, so I'm done. I want to tell everybody this. I love you very much. I appreciate you more than you can possibly imagine. And I'm wandering around. If you want to talk to me, tell me how much you love me. And thank you, everybody. Was that fun or what? We'll have a DVD of this later so you can take it home and entertain spiting all your friends.